productive day for us. Finished up with our 2 seconds and our third-round pick, Byron Murphy from the University of Washington, a guy that we had rated extremely high. Has everything you look for in a corner, in our opinion: feet, movement skills, tremendous ball skills for a corner, a guy that gets his hand on a lot of balls, has been coached well by a friend of mine, Jimmy Lake, up there at University of Washington. Local kid, so we've had a chance to spend a lot of time with him. Love the passion, love the intensity, the fact that he was teammates in the past with two guys that we're very high on in Christian Kirk and Buda Baker. Certainly went a long way, and he sort of fits that mold. Also, adding to that list today is Indy Isabela, guy that many across the country probably don't know a lot about. But when you look up the stat log and see what he's done against top-tier competition, teams like Georgia, South Florida, a number of different teams that we saw him play against, coupled by the fact that we have two members in our building that were with him at the University of Massachusetts, so there's intimate knowledge. Ryan Gold and Spencer Whipple have both been with him and could really vouch for what he was made up of internally and externally. So again, we're extremely excited about him. He brings a different skill set that we don't currently have, which is the foot speed and explosiveness to take the top off. He ran 4.3 at the combine, and again, when you watch him on tape, he has been productive against everybody. Went down to the Senior Bowl and had a lot of success. So again, he's a guy that we think can come in and contribute right away. And then we finished up with Zach Allen, who is a guy that was one of the players that I may have been most fond of during the evaluation process. Again, I talked about a quarterback yesterday that did things that I haven't seen in my time scouting. I'm not sure I've seen a defensive lineman have 100 tackles in a season. This guy plays like his hair's on fire. He's relentless. He does different things from a pass rush standpoint that a lot of defensive ends and five techniques don't do. So he's a guy that not only brings the character that we're looking for, but he brings the toughness and intensity that we're looking for. So again, three members of our team that we're extremely excited to add. Questions?
Given the quarterback depth situation that you noted and the reality of attrition that you noted in the NFL, what would you say kind of spurred the timeline of the Josh Rosen trade occurring in now today, given those concerns?
Right. Well, Josina, there were a number of things that we talked about yesterday, and quite frankly, they were the truth. We're very high on Josh Rosen, and certainly we're fine to keep him. But I think there were a number of things that went into it, and it's sort of a sliding scale when you look at the value of what you get for the player, as well as the number of players that you can get sort of in that area. And really what our goal all along is to get potentially 3 players, or say 4 players with the pick yesterday, in our top 50. And not only did we do that, we got 4 players in our top 35. Which is probably about as good as I've seen in recent years for us. So it was really about the opportunity. Certainly all of us are big fans of Josh Rosen's, wish him well, and I think he's going to have a heck of a career in the NFL.
Why did he ultimately work out here?
I don't know that it wasn't that he didn't work out. I would say obviously he was put in a tough situation last year. But I think really when you come down to the bottom line is we had an opportunity to find a dynamic player that we think can be special.
Kliff, when you look at Isabela, is he the ultimate slot guy, or would you like to move him around?
I think, he had a lot of production inside and outside, and that's what's exciting to us, is his ability to play on the outside and separate and create space. He's dangerous on the inside as well, but he's a guy who showed he could do it both at a high level.
Steve, were you going to insist on getting a second-round pick for Josh? Would you have not traded him, had to dip into the third somewhere?
It wasn't as much about exactly the 2 or whatever it was, and I know we got a 2 and a 5 next year. It was really more about sort of trusting our board and what was the cutoff of the value, and the difference of maybe what it would be to have him on the roster in terms of 3 guys or 4 guys that could contribute and can help in those immediate roles.
Do you think you had a deal with them at 48?
No, because we didn't.
Where do you see Murphy immediately? Does he slide in as a starting nickel possibly? I mean, is he going to have to earn that? How do you kind of see where he fits in right away?
Yeah, he'll compete. There's no doubt. You got to be in the rotation somewhere. He's that type of playmaker. You see the production, the pass breakups. He's always seems to get his hand on the football somehow, and dynamic talent in the slot at corner. like Steve mentioned, we had him rated very highly as a defensive staff and as an organization. So we are thrilled to death to get him.
How hard is it to get 100 tackles in college in the season?
It's tough, particularly as a D lineman. I mean, and it's his motor. I mean, every snap you turn on, he is chasing the football. He plays his tail off every snap, and it's a credit to just how he approaches the game, and that's how he came across in the interview and through the draft process is one of those guys that you want on your team. He's going to will himself into being a really good football player.
You see Evans a guy who can shift inside too at times?
Yes, he to me is the ideal 3-4 end, but there are times when he can play the 3, the 5. He can even bounce out to the 7 because he was a college end that did different things schematically. So he's also one of those guys that maybe the way he tested athletically doesn't really tell you what he is on the field. Like when you watch him on tape, he's so talented with his hands and is a much better athlete than I think than most people anticipate.
I feel like high motor guys are important against the run, where the run defense struggled last year, but if you get those guys that are continually pursuing the ball.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, if you get 11 guys running to the football, you got a chance. And I think that the one thing that he brings to the table is the ability to get people around him excited. He's that kind of guy that people feed off of.
Steve, when you're making these calls and notifying that you're going to draft them, you're changing their lives regardless of around there. You're talking about character, guys that love football. Even Allen said he would sell popcorn if he had to. Do you feel like you've accomplished that today?
Yeah, I mean, that was the goal in mind, and we've tried to do that more and more, Mike, over the last several years. And again, as you go through the process, and we talk about where you learn your lessons, sometimes to maybe leave a less talented guy up there to take a guy who, on our character scale, where we do A personal and A football character, that you have a double A. And regardless of ability, if you have a double A, you got a real chance. And those are the kind of players that we want to put in our locker room. Not that you can't take, chances from time to time, but there's no doubt that those guys bring a limited amount of risk to them.
Steve, did Josh have an awareness of the potential of him being traded today, just given the events on his social media following of the team?
I'm not sure. I'm not on Instagram, and I didn't talk to Josh today, but that's probably a better question for him.
And has anyone talked to him since his trade, or is that just kind of done now that he's gone?
I have not had a chance. Just left the draft right now.
Was it harder to trade him than you expected?
Harder? No, because I've been through enough drafts and have dealt players before or traded for players that I never. I try not to think about how easy or hard it would be, because a lot of times you let yourself down. Like for example, I never would have thought that I would have been able to get Chandler Jones for a second-round pick. Yet at the same time, there are other factors that go into things that you don't know why that somebody wouldn't be more excited about another player that you may have had. So, I try not to get caught up in that, and it's more about the feel of the value in terms of what you're getting, what you're replacing them with, and really how you can improve this organization.
Was the value expected for what you got for Josh?
Was the value what I expected? I didn't expect. I didn't know what. I would have been happy to keep him.
There was a report this morning you guys didn't make Josh available till right before the draft started yesterday. Was that true? And if so, what was the thinking behind that?
In terms of making him available?
Get to other teams and saying teams could have him.
For the draft?
Yeah.
Oh, no. I've two things. Number one, I never actively shopped him, and I've been clear about that all along. Yet at the same time, I've had a number of conversations with other teams starting back to the combine. So I saw that report, and it's inaccurate. Matter of fact, it's just the bottom line is a team has to make a hard offer. And I always leave that door open, because it's my job, whether I'm actively shopping somebody or not, to let somebody know, make me an offer.
So you had those kind of conversations at the combine, if you're interested?
All the way back to the combine that were periodically up until the draft, correct.
Kliff, when you said he was your guy back in February, did you mean that? Is that something you truly believe in, or is that just kind of a sponsor?
As the evaluation went on, Steve talked about it yesterday, it became evident that we felt like Kyler was a special talent, that was the best player in the draft, and that we had to take him.
How comfortable you are with the quarterback room now with Kyler and with Brett, as opposed to having Kyler and Josh?
I was very comfortable with how it shook out. I mean, everybody knows that's a position you can't have enough of. We've talked about that the last couple of days, and so I was excited to work with whoever's in that room.
Were you eyeballing offensive lines, do you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, again, going back to the one thing about this draft again that I'm excited about is we can sit and somebody, if you're a fan or you're the casual observer, at 33, oh, you should have took a receiver, you should have took, the bottom line is we're trusting our board. It's always good to take an offensive tackle or an offensive guard, whatever it may be. But if the value's not there, we're not going to just make knee-jerk reactions based on need. So would we love to add some more additional offensive linemen? Absolutely, if the value says it should be there. But again, at 33, Byron Murphy to me was a no-brainer. The guy's a fantastic player, and I think he'll be able to contribute this year. His ability to play inside and outside, in particular, and then just again, Isabela has been a lot of fun to watch. Somebody we were really excited about, and then again, Zach Allen, somebody we think can contribute right away. Isabela, it's funny because when I first watched him, I walked down to Kliff's office, and if there's any school that has great white slot receivers, it's Texas Tech. And I said, I went back in the scouting system, and I tried to look up all your buddies, whether it was Welker, Amendola, and all those guys, and they have tremendous quickness, but those guys all ran in the 4.6s. Matter of fact, was it Amendola ran 4.68?
I think so.
Or was that well? But
yeah.
Either way, both of them I think ran in the 4.6s. This guy ran 4.3 and has that type of quickness. And again, when you say he played at UMass, but you watch him on tape and what he does against the top schools, the Georgias and those places. There was even a game, I'm not sure who it was against, but I think he had 309 yards receiving, which I can't recall many players that have had 300 yards receiving in a game.
Cliff, in your offense, is there not a huge difference between outside receivers and slot receivers in terms of how you use them?
It depends. We'll adapt to our personnel and try to put guys in positions where they can be successful. So we have guys who've been very successful on the inside that can move outside, and sometimes they're not as good outside. But we're going to move guys around and put them in spots that we think they can handle.
Did you feel like it was important to get a guy that could stretch the field and do that thing against the back end of the defense and force them to go?
Yeah, I think you always want that. I think Christian last year, playing outside, had that ability at times, and I think, Isabela running a 4.31, he's a guy you're going to have to watch anytime he steps on the field for that deep threat.
How does the board look as you're setting up for Saturday?
Good. There were a number of opportunities to make some moves, and it may have involved like the top of the 4th round pick, which I've always liked that pick, because at the top of 4, I feel like there's a number of players that really have a lot of upside and potential that maybe are overlooked for one reason or another. So there's definitely some guys that we covet, that we're excited about, and certainly give us an opportunity to have success with.
I feel like you had this question every year, but any surprises so far?
Yeah, I don't want to name them. There's always surprises. The NFL draft is so fascinating, and which is why probably so many people watch it, and it's on 3 networks. But it's great for our game. It's great for our job security. But it's fun. It's what we all get excited about. I don't know any other sport that people talk about a draft this much, and it just goes to show you the popularity of the game.
Steve, we'll make this the last one.
Steve, given its pro experience level with the quarterback, is it a consideration to bring in a veteran quarterback? Do you feel it's necessary?
I don't think it's necessary, but we will definitely keep our options open. That's one thing I've always done is regardless of position, if we have an opportunity to get better, we'll make that move.
Coach Steve, thank you very much.
Thank you.